What would 12-year-old you never believe about adult you? For almost 9 years, I've worked literally 1 minute away from a huge water park and I've never gone there. I lived in New Zealand for 8 years, been to the studio and the film locations. Still haven't seen the movies. That I do math for a living. Math. He'd have been so upset. Edit. Wow, did not expect so many replies to this of all posts. Must be a lot of accidental mathematicians out there. I should have been more specific. I'm a financial analyst, so I play with numbers and spreadsheets and that kind of stuff all day. So not even the cool kind of math that helps us get into space or anything. More like, yeah, last year we spent 45% more on Lacroix for the office than in the previous year. So, maybe less Lacroix this year? Edit 2. For more clarity, all I ever wanted to be was a musician. Even went to school for music. Still play pretty much every day, just never made a living from it. So I went from rock and roll to profit and loss, as it were. By the way guys, if you are enjoying this video so far, don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to the channel. It will help us out quite a bit, and if you don't enjoy the videos in the future anymore, you can always unsubscribe. Let's get back to the video. We never got that growth spurt we were promised. I was actually a very tall kid, to the part that I was insecure about it back people would comment on it all the time. I remember very well that I was 163 cm tall when I was 12, but my final height turned out to be 165 cm. No growth spurt for me. I'm shorter than both of my parents as well, 187 cm and 170 cm, so it's like I've been cheated haha. I was one of the tallest girls in class since kindergarten. This lasted up until I went to high school, and then it felt like wandering through a forest. The tall person demeanor is ingrained at this point. I'm 5'6" and sometimes forget that people think that's short. I live in a country where most women are really petite, so I'm actually considered tall by many people here, but I'm also a dietitian, so I deal with international growth charts regularly, and I know for a fact that I'm very average. It's alright, but when you grew up hearing you're so tall all the time, it's a little bit disappointing, especially since I hated it. It's like I only got to experience being tall when it was awkward being tall haha. That sometimes, when I'm not paying attention, my mom S word slipped right out of my mouth. Sometimes it happens, even when I'm paying attention. I'm too young to turn into her. My mother isn't always wrong. She's right about a lot of things, even if they didn't make sense when I was younger. Most subjective things though, no. I'm 15 and I feel that, especially when I'm talking to my younger brother. Hopefully 20-year me will be more irresponsible and reckless. Alcohol has your back. Nah, I don't really like alcohol. Not only does it cause health harm, liver etc in the long run, I don't also feel the need. I feel like weed is better, but if do it while you're under 25 and your brain isn't completely formed, it can cause brain damage. That, I too, don't know what I'm doing with my life. Lol, I think 12-year-old me knew more about what I was doing in life than I do. Ignorance is bliss, I'm told. I'm still trying to figure out if I really was smarter / quicker before my depressive bit or I just didn't know how much stuff I missed. Like nowadays it feels like I got a veil over my sensory input and can't fully grasp the reality of the situation, whereas back in the day everything was so clear and graspable in a way. You were absolutely more stupid as a 12-year-old, and all of that doubt / insecurity is how you learn as a real human adult on earth. That I own an ice cream shop. Edit. Holy cow. I posted my response, went to bed, and woke up to this blowing up. I will also add that, because of my ice cream shop I was a contestant on Chop. 12-year-old me would be even more shocked by that. As an ice cream shop owner, how much ice cream do you in fact still consume? Do you get tired of it after a while? Can one even get tired of ice cream? I'm not up, but my parents own an ice cream shop that I basically grew up in, So I think I'm qualified to answer this question, and yeah, you basically eat ice cream every day. I'd assume it's right up there with pretty much every single other type of specialized food place. I have a friend who worked in a pizzeria for 3 years when she was a teenager. She hasn't eaten pizza for 10 years now. I actually like exercise and physical activity, it's just PE class that sucked. School does a surprisingly good job of sucking every last bit of fun out of many subjects. PE focused on competitive team sports, horrible for non-competitive or less coordinated people. My school loved doing dance exercise. Every single year, without fail, we would have 1 or 2 terms of dancing. In grade 9, I got incredibly sick. My feet swelled up so much that I couldn't wear my school shoes. I was diagnosed with arthritis and given a letter from the doctor to excuse me from PE. It was one of those dance terms. She laughed at my letter because only old people get arthritis and then called me lazy. I tried really hard that term, but I still got grade because dancing when your feet are in excruciating pain is not very graceful. That the brother I hated would become my best friend. Edit. Damn. Left this comment before bed. Came back to this. Thank you all for the awards. Lol, this never happens to me on here. Warms my little heart to see so many people with a lot of love for their brothers. Yes, took my nearly 20 years to connect with my brother. I'm still working on it with mine. It's hard when you relate so much to another person and yet you have vastly different personalities. For me it helped a lot to find music we both liked. We are still very different, but with focusing on our similarities we got more than a friendship. And always spend time together, even if it seems boring/annoying at times. If I try to bond with him over music I have one shot. If he doesn't like the first song I put on, it's back to his music. Also queuing is sacrilege. Full albums only. Hey, you know that girl over there you think is really weird? You're going to marry her. This might be my favorite one. Sweet, sappy, predictable, but also nice and simple. I love this. My partner and I went to high school together, but mostly ran in different circles. A little over a year ago the military sent him to my city. He added me on Facebook, and we met up for dinner just to catch up. That turned into another dinner, then another, and now I'm moving to another state to be with him. If you had told younger me that I'd wind up with the guy I secretly crushed on for almost 4 years, I never would have believed you. This hits home. Met my wife when we both started high school. We weren't really friends throughout all of high school, but we started dating at the very end of high school. Fast forward 8 years, we are married, got our first home, and had our first child together just last week. That story would definitely make my 12-year-old self giggle in disbelief if he knew he'd be marrying that girl. I'd still sit down for an all-night session of Dungeons and Dragons. I never played D&D, but I really want to try. I've been listening to a bit of the Adventure Zone podcast, and it sounds like a blast. Growing up, it was always the bottom of the barrel for nerdism. You could play or be into anything nerdy and get away with it, because at least it's not D&D. I think my friends and I would really dig it if they just got past the stereotype. The last time I talked about it some time ago, the idea got shot down. Maybe I'll give it another go the next time I go home, or try arranging it with them online over Roll20. The biggest problem is that I would likely have to be dungeon master for a group that knows nothing about it. I barely do. Don't worry. Those early sessions figuring stuff out are so fun. Just jump into it, create a story, and have fun. I made it to 21. Same. Then I hit 25. And now I'm looking at 30. It's really weird to think that I didn't think I'd make it this far, but I've somehow dragged myself through. I'm literally in the same boat, but still at the 21 mark. I will be 22 in September, and even just thinking about that gives me a panic attack, coming from someone who was certain 21 would be my last year, and who tried to make it so. It can and will get better, as long as you keep looking out for the next manageable better. If you're feeling like Sometimes a shower or bath is the next better. Sometimes it's a good book, or losing yourself in a hobby. Sometimes it is deciding to finally try that hobby you were a little intimidated by. Sometimes it is accomplishing a task you put off, or organizing a space that drives you nuts. It's messaging a friend, or reaching out to help or be helped. Whatever it is, you can find a next thing that will help you make better happen. How big my are. Yesterday me wouldn't believe that someone said this on the internet and nobody replied with pics. Yeah, I looked 8 years old when I was 12 and 35 years old when I was 14. Middle school was a weird time for me. I randomly acquired the body type of every cartoon mom overnight when I was barely a teenager. I'm a dude, but went from being a baby at 12 to are you the new tar, somewhere between 13 and 14. And I haven't looked like I've aged a day since. My high school photos are a trip for my younger employees. Yeah, I'm younger than you in this picture. It's from a decade ago, weird right? That he would become a scientist after all. Being a dirt flop or country kid seemed unsurmountable at the time. What kind of science? While Sheldon wouldn't approve, I became a geologist lol. Now I think that being a geologist rocks. What kind of geology interests you? Good question. I enjoy ore deposition, but currently work in environmental remediation and enjoy that as well. In school I really focused in on naturally occurring thermoelectric materials and wish more avenues were available to pursue that. We never achieved that swan status. Still an ugly duckling. I read the Hans Christian Andersen story. It features many times of the ugly duckling saying I'm so ugly, I should just die. It's not a good moral. A better moral is you may be an ugly duck but that's because you are really a dog and someone out there thinks you are one heck of a dog. Just gotta find that person. I'm from Denmark, so it was written in my language, but that message was pretty clear to me, although our teachers did have us analyze it. The ugly duckling was always the ugliest of the bunch, and Noon quite liked it. However, the mother would never give up on it, a mother's love. So it went on to think that Noon other than the mother, and perhaps even the mother, would ever love it, but when it finally met someone who saw him as one of the most beautiful swans, he could be happy. It wasn't him being a duck or a swan, it was for someone else to see who he really is. An ugly person can go through a tough childhood with bullying, only to find out that his personality will have someone fall for him eventually. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Most of his stories have some twist or insane moral. But it's usually all true and meant to teach kids that life isn't easy. The Little Mermaid who gave up everything to someone she barely knew, only to be turned down and left to die because she had no more to give, and so on. He'd be blown away that I'm writing professionally now. Same here. 12-year-old me would never believe if he was told he would be writing screenplays as a grown-up. This is the dream. I wanted to do this at 12, still do. I still read the classic screenwriting books once a year. The path to doing it seems so much foggier than when I was 12. Even through my teens I thought I'd be pitching spec scripts to top producers. I embarrassingly even practiced pitching. I'm only mid-20s now, so an older person would tell me I still have bags of time, but it feels like that ship has sailed. That my hair would still be this long. I was on chemo from 11 to 14 and all I wanted was to get my hair back. I had luscious locks halfway down my back. I'm a boy and I'm proud to say after 3 years of being off chemo my hair has restored to almost its old length. I'm eternally grateful for my life and plan to live it to the fullest. I get that I'm not really an adult, but I'm as adult as I've ever been. You're as adult as you act, I think. I don't feel like I've really changed from 17-year-old me as a person. After 17 you just have more experiences, and if you're lucky find things and people you're passionate about. At least in my experience. Sounds like you've had a really life-changing few years, and it's great you're going forward like that. I've heard actual adults say they just feel like teenagers pretending to be adults, so I suppose you're right lol. But no, that is a good way of thinking about it. Guess I have to see if it rings true in the future. I'm about to be 43. I have a theory you never stop being any age, you just add more years. So yeah, I get to try out a new age every year and still use all the ones I've collected. That I can run 6 entire miles. Run the whole thing without stopping once. I still can't believe it sometimes. The human body is amazing. I'm disabled and I went on a walk recently. I walked 7 miles. I never thought I was capable of that, and my record before this was perhaps 4. I was shook. I hurt for 3 days, but it was worth it. That's amazing. Great job, and I hope it only gets better from there. Humans have the longest endurance of any predator species. By literal miles, possibly thousands. A technique early humans had was to simply pursue an animal until that animal gave up, too tired to keep on going, and died. We are the terminators of the animal world. We just keep on the trail until the poor deer can't take another step and falls over of exhaustion. Then we eat it. Even the most out of shape human can manage several miles of walking without issue, and after a few days of that type of exercise the body starts to switch to more efficient energy use and muscle control for endurance. It's not about speed or grace, it's about doing it for hours upon hours without being tired. My 12-year-old me would never believe both my biological parents are dead, although from the father she would have expected it, but sadly mother died earlier. She wouldn't also believe that I've made it to 40 years old because 12-year-old me always said that I wouldn't make it to my 30th year. And that I've gotten to 2 fights with a brain tumor and won them for so far. I'm sorry 12-year-old me, I just want to live, just to prove some people wrong. To prove them, yes I'm worthy. Yes I can. Am I a stubborn person? Well hell yeah. I'm in there for the long run. Edit. Wow, never have I thought this would blow up as it did. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. And also for the kind answers on this post, it's much appreciated. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage. Rage against the dying of the light. Dylan Marlace Thomas. That my political and religious views have changed, 18-year-old me would have been just as surprised. Edit. In case anyone is interested, I didn't expect this comment to cause a lot of discussion. Here's more info. I used to be extremely conservative. I still remember being a freshman in college and sticking out for it. I was definitely homophobic. As I went through college I slowly realized that I had been brainwashed into hating people and things. I had Muslim, gay, and liberal friends. My biggest revelation was breaking free of the identity politics that plagued my childhood. I voted for Trump in 2016, and it wasn't too long before I realized the mistake I made. I consider myself a moderate now, and I like to think I can see through the BS that politicians sling around. More recently, I have abandoned Christianity. I was never a huge participatory Christian, but COVID really tested my faith. I saw so many Christians turn themselves toward prayer and healing rather than masks and quarantine. It got to the point where it felt like everyone was actively brainwashing themselves with hokey mythology nonsense. I live in the Bible Belt and it's unlikely that I'll ever be able to come out about it. My career would be damaged by people thinking I was an evil atheist. When I was not 12 but 13, I got this crazy idea. I dreamed of someday loading a bunch of camping gear onto my bicycle and disappearing for a year or so to ride around the country. Also when I was 13, I started to see signs of trouble in my family. When I was 17, those family troubles would culminate in my parents' divorce. And when I was 20 years old, I would finally set off on that bike camping trip I dreamed of for so long. So 13-year-old me would be super stoked to hear that the bike trip actually happened, and he wouldn't be entirely surprised about the divorce and its lingering effects to this day. But 12-year-old me? Yeah, he has absolutely no idea what's coming. 25 and just started dreaming about doing the same thing. There's a part of me that wants to walk away from everything and just go on bike about. I'm glad/envious you got to live your dream. That my mom would actually leave my abusive stepdad. Thought it would take a miracle. And that miracle actually came. Just a few years ago I had been prepping my soon-to-be wife for the expectation that we would never visit that side of the family since it just wasn't safe. It all ended up so much better than I ever had imagined. Congrats on your mom leaving. Big win right there for sure. My mom did that too. I still don't really visit because she's a bit of a chore to deal with too, but I'm glad she and my siblings aren't in the path of his abuse anymore. And that I can see them without having to see him. That one day he'll be getting a PhD. I grew up in a really poor family. Mom working 3 jobs and still barely making ends meet, kind of poor. I always had dreams of becoming a big shot doctor or lawyer or something and getting super rich, but I think part of me knew that would never happen because we would never be able to afford college. I ended up joining the military and used my GI Bill to fund my undergrad and masters, and I just got accepted into a PhD program, fully funded. So it won't cost me a dime. Give it about 4 years and I'll be Dr. Validus Rex. A PhD is a far cry from a guarantee of riches, but it's still an enormous accomplishment that would have sounded impossible to a younger me. Honestly, it's still kind of hard to believe. I eat so many goddamn vegetables. This is actually kind of a new thing that really picked up in my early 30s. My meals are now like 90% veggies. I was a super picky eater as a kid. Little did I realize it's because I grew up eating steamed broccoli and grilled chicken almost every night, and that's a pretty barbaric, if healthy, way to grow up. Anyway, I got into cooking, kept expanding my palate, and now it's Fiber City. I guess I'm healthier now, which is cool, but more importantly eating a giant bowl of veggies makes me feel like a goddamn brontosaurus, which is pretty much all I ever wanted to be growing up. I love the fact that you managed to achieve a goal to become a brontosaurus. I love veggies now. Not so much the fruit, but oh my god, the veggies. At home I eat a nearly vegetarian diet. I like kale of all things. And Brussels sprouts. Celery though. Still can't stomach that off. That I'm in my late 30s and single/childless. I grew up very sheltered and religious. I saw life as very black and white. I was going to live the fairy tale. But I grew up and had my heart broken because I make stupid choices, and I realized that being single is infinitely better than being with the wrong person. The childless hurts sometimes, but I don't think I could do it on my own. So I spend my time being the best auntie I can be. Most of the time I don't feel like I'm missing out. Nowadays I'm okay with being single, and when I'm not I go look at shoes that cost more than I earn, try them on, and ask if they have them in a color that they won't have, then leave saying shame, if only they were. Then, when I'm tired, I go out and eat a huge pile of ribs because I cannot eat those on front of people I'm trying to impress. Hey, not sure if you need to hear this or not, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. You can make your own fairy tale. You can be in love with yourself, take care of yourself well. People who have kids don't get to do anything they want to. People without kids do. You can leave the house, leave the country, and not have to worry about a babysitter. Take that silver lining and run with it. You aren't held down, you can do anything you want to. ESP in religious settings, we are taught women having babies is a required part of the life path. I'm very much child free, and I do not believe anyone has to follow that path. If you genuinely want kids, that's one thing. But maybe, just maybe, you've been taught to want kids BC you have to live out the fairy tale. Don't forget you have the ability to write your own fairy tale. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.